You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is a January 13th, 2023 meeting of the Long Beach Building Commission. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Long Beach Building Commission, and we'll call the meeting to order at 1:03. We'll take roll. Larry, yes. Bob Lemay. Here. John Coker. Here. Ken Klausner. Here. Joy Schmidt.
Here.
Pete Bybos. Here. Joe Jagman is not here. Lou Mellon.
I just saw him.
Lou's on his way in. Okay. First order of business, we sent the minutes out, to everybody for the December meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Bob Lemay, seconded by Joy. Any discussion? Being done, do we have to have a roll call? Oh, nobody's on Zoom, right? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Both same sign. Carried. Next up is the commissioner's report. For December, we had 13 permits with construction costs of $361,388, which generated fees of $4,230. For the year 2022, we issued 251 permits with construction costs of $10,062,352, which generated fees of $106,338. For the month. You read it?
You should probably push that.
That makes sense.
We're going to pause here a second till Lou gets started.
Before Robert.
So we're going to mark Lou is here. We received 132 calls on permits and/or information requests. I should say I received. The town also receives calls and information requests. I don't have a count on those. I don't know if it's necessary to count them, but. And then Lou, do you have a number on your site visits and inspections?
Yeah.
Okay. Lou, if you get that to us.
Absolutely.
Move along. Any comments or questions on the commissioner's report? Being none, we'll move into old business. First order of old business is to set a meeting date for the beach stairs. Pete, you want to, is there a date that you had in mind, or should we just pick one? And,
Almost anytime.
all right, well, how about if we, I'll get with Chris and we'll pick a date when everybody can be there. I'll come up with maybe 2 or 3 dates in the next week, 2 weeks, and send them out to everybody. If we can pick one, we'll go. How's that sound?
It just remember it has to be posted to the
48 hours.
Okay. And just to clarify the nature of that meeting, because we had such attendance and it's an important topic, that one will be for the building commission to make its determinations on what you think collectively are or are not violations. And then from there, correspondence will be sent to each of the homeowners and then given an opportunity. For those that you find to be in compliance, they'll have correspondence that they can record and have forever so that it's clean slate. And those that you feel are a violation, they'll have a date certain, right? There'll be a determination where they come, and if they think they have otherwise, or a building permit for 20 years ago, something and then you'll go from there, right? And then enforce it.
Yes, that's correct.
I just want to make sure so that everybody's prepared, because I know there's a lot of time and effort that have gone in, but there'll be people that are interested. But that next meeting, is it a hearing or some form of court proceeding where we're doing anything other than that this board or commission will make determinations and then give them an opportunity to respond.
Sounds good. I think that's the intention of, after we met and went over all this, the items. All right, so I'll send an email out to everybody. We'll pick a few dates and then we can get that meeting scheduled. Next up, an old business is 2502 Glendale, which is a current permit application for a new roof over the patio. I think everybody knows the history here. The homeowner is present and the applicant homeowner, Dan, they cut the concrete wall back, reported, so everything is now within the setbacks and according to ordinance. So the roof over the patio would be doable. Okay.
So the roof and the patio are now not within the setback, is that correct?
That's correct. The patio has been corrected and the roof is going over just the patio. Okay, we have a motion to approve that one.
I'll make that motion.
Bob May,
I'll second.
Ken, second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. We're good there. They're all set, Dan.
Thank you so much.
Next up is the MS4 requirements. We're waiting on a draft ordinance from Reggie. Send an email. We are going to have a meeting here with the other 4 towns or 3 or 4 towns that are now going to be their own MS4s. And that's going to happen, I believe, next Thursday or Friday. And I had sent an email to Reggie this morning asking her where we are on the ordinance and asking her if she needed any help. So that's where we're at on that. Once we get set up, the ordinance would go through the APC and then to the town council.
Larry, could you just make sure I know what that means next week? This is the first I've heard, but I'll.
Okay, she may not have included you in the email this morning, Bob. I actually, John, all right, I'll make a note of that too. Let me know, Bob. Next up is the coastal groups. There's really nothing to report. We had a meeting, which I think we reported on already. We had a Zoom meeting with the coordinators of one group, and they said that they would get back to us with that outcome no later than April 1st. The other group, we sent it wasn't really an application, it was really I suppose it was an application. It was an application, and then we sent information in on each of the 4 people that we were thinking about putting into the group. The next step there would be a meeting of that group in Lansing, a 2-day meeting, and we have not heard back. I'll let everybody know when something happens on that. Next up is the building department software. We, and when I say we, that's Lou, myself, and Honor, have reviewed 4 software providers. They range in price from about, initially, the first year prices from $20,000 to $40,000. And then subsequent years, they range in price from around $6,000 to, I think it was 18. Was it 18 for the, right? So we're still in the process of reviewing those, and I would expect that we will make a recommendation to the building commission within the next 2 weeks on 1, if not 2 packages, so that you guys can take a look at it. And then from there, I expect that it would go to the town council. Any questions on that?
Will this, the companies we're looking at, and the chief is not here, so I don't know what the answer is, but is there any possibility, likelihood that because we're automating the fine process and stuff like that. Can we roll in the police department with that, or any function of the police department that can be rolled into?
Each one of the software packages that we've looked at, and I hope I'm answering your question properly, Pete, and Lou and I are chime in if you have anything else, but each one of the software packages allows us to issue citations, stop work orders, violations of any kind, and that they're automatically tracked. A couple of the packages, actually, as soon as that citation or violation is issued, emails both the homeowner and the contractor, if there's a contractor involved in it. I'm not positive. I do know that one of them we talked about in general code violations and the police being involved in that. It's a matter of who has a seat at the table in the software package. I think the ones that we're leaning to right now, both of those, or at least one of those packages, is everybody systemically has access to it. Some are read-only, but anybody can look at it. And so I think, I hope I'm answering your question, Pete. The police department could be involved in it. Is that
Yeah.
what you wanted?
So regarding the building commission stuff, who will be writing the code that creates the databases and puts them into the system? So for example, we've got ordinances that we want to refer to, we want to say violation of such and such ordinance.
That has to tie into a database somewhere, which does not now exist. Do we write that? Do the other people write it? How do we do that? And so, for example, we go out and find out that somebody has put a patio in that's too close to the edge of the property line. Violate. We give them an ordinance number. Then do we? How is that then integrated with all the ordinances that we have listed? Or do we just merely supply an ordinance number, and then on the back end, we've got to do some more work to, electronically put that out in a report or something like that? Am I making sense?
Yes, my understanding is, and only one of them didn't really give us a definitive answer on how it would work. Let's start at the top. Our software package would be, I don't know what they call it, downloaded or integrated into that software package would be the IRC, the Indiana Residential Code. Also integrated into that software would be the Long Beach additions to the IRC and our list of ordinances. How they migrate that in, I'm not sure, but my understanding is, and I want to check with both of these guys before I say this, or before to make sure this is correct. If we write a violation, let's say for ordinance 151.623, that would automatically be noted when an email was to go out to the contractor and the homeowner. They would be able to see what that ordinance is. Is that your understanding, Hunter?
Correct.
Okay, so going downstream from that, what happens to it? I mean, in other words, are we integrating, who's writing it? Who's writing? Are we writing that portion that creates,
We would give them our published ordinances.
Okay, and they've seen this already. They've done this.
Right. One actually is which Chris let us know about, is Beaton Snyder. To give you some idea of the integration process. All of them have the capability to be GPS oriented. So if somebody puts a permit in, maybe we could start this way. If somebody puts a permit in, so whether it's a contractor or a homeowner, they put that in. migrated into the system would be either Beacon Snyder's information or somebody else's GPS stuff. But let's just pick the Beacon Snyder people. So what would come up as soon as that would be, and you start the address, I'll use mine, 3023 Mayfield Way. My property record would pop up. The maps that we see on Beacon Snyder would pop up. Then I would put in there what I'm going to do. So then that permit, it goes through the process, and I can't fully describe that right now because it's kind of a long process, and that's why we would pick a couple and let you guys see them all, the demonstrations. So at that point, then we decide, everybody stamps it. It says, I've seen this, I've seen this, I've seen this. You can't get further into the system until you have completed everything. We would no longer get permits that don't have the right information. So then, let's say the permit's issued. I think this follows to your point. The permit's issued, Lou goes out and cites them for improper, some violation. Stop work order would be issued because we said to the software people, when we migrated, as soon as a violation is issued, then we want you to kick out a stop work order. And right away, the homeowner would be notified as well as the contractor and any other contractor, correct, is listed on that particular property. From the standpoint of who follows that, I have not asked the question of them. And I think what you're saying is, or asking is, what happens in the next step after the citation comes, right?
Well, I probably shouldn't be going into this right now, we'll talk later, but I want to make sure that we don't run into the same problems that we ran into with conversion and so-called upgrade of the civic system that went on here, and the problems went on for months. And it caused delays, in that case caused delays in payroll, caused delays in problem. Lots of time had to be devoted by us to reconcile these issues and correct these issues. I want to make sure that whatever company we go to, they are responsible for getting a system up and running and checked out, a beta version, whatever you want to call it, and get it running before they turn it over to us. I don't want them to just install something and say, okay, guys, go for it. Because that would, and then the same thing is when we talk about something similar to what you were saying about if a violation occurs and all these individuals are notified of this problem, somebody's got to enter that data. We have to have data for all the people who need to be contacted. Ultimately, we will be the ones who are doing that, but we have to have a designated person or persons that do that. It's more than just rolling up and saying,
Yes.
we got a registration here with a bond, and that thing now becomes an important part of the whole thing to keep track of, updated, whatever it is, The key is to find out what they are going to deliver to us for the price that we pay. And in my opinion, it should be a completed system, ready to go, before it's turned over, before we start executing, that all the data is entered and they supervise it, and they approve it. Because in the civic system, people were up in Wisconsin, they basically said, we're in Wisconsin.
One in particular, and it was the last one we saw, so I'll use that one, was Beacon Snyder. And there were three people on the three of their people on the call, the Zoom meeting. And one of them was the technician or the nerd, or whatever you want to call it. The guy that does the actual programming. And some of the stuff that we talked about is exactly what you're talking about. So we would, from what we've seen, we would make sure, let's look at what you were talking about. So for a permit, so when you put a permit in, that permit's not going to go through unless you put your contractor in there. And if you put Wall Constructors in there and their bonds expired, it's going to be a red X and your permit won't go further. And then we can say, you also have to list an electrician. You also, we can determine how many of those have to be done. And that system itself is designed and built by them. We provide them with the information, obviously, but the GPS system, in particular with the Beacon Schneider system, is the one that populates who the owner is. And then the contractor, again, I can't think of the right term because I'm not a software guy, but it's a flow chart, you know. If you didn't do this, you're not getting to the next step.
Right.
So we would prevent a lot of the problems that we have now.
Oh, and
Before,
and that'd be great.
and not even in-house. I mean, that would mean, we would never even see anything if somebody wanted, you know, how we always get Cousin Jimmy. Well, Cousin Jimmy's not gonna be in the approved list, in the registered list, so your permit's not gonna go through with Cousin Jimmy.
Yeah, okay, so sounds like you guys are doing it. The other thing I would like you to consider is that we find a local community who has this system installed that we can pair up with and identify as problems go on and problems occur. Rather than calling these people, we can see how did you resolve it, because it's more important the people on the ground are solving the problem than ripping off to a consultant who's gonna charge us exorbitant rates.
That's actually our next step.
Yeah.
It's going to LaPorte County. They're actually using Beacon Schneider right now.
Right.
So Lou and I were gonna get together with them next week or the following week to see how it's going for them.
Yeah.
And we want to develop an ongoing relationship with them. It says, you know, we've got a problem, will you help us?
Okay.
Because if we're left out, Civic, for example, was chosen years ago, and there's only 2 other state communities, and I can't remember where they're at, in the state that have Civic. So if the problem came up, we had to call Civic and say, and assume the position.
I think one of the things, one of the sellers or the purveyors of the software systems is Beacon Schneider, and they're located in Indianapolis. The majority of their sites or communities are within the state. In particular, the guy that was on our call, I can't remember his name, but he was the taskmaster guy. He was the one that set up LaPorte. He actually pulled their site up, pulled my company up and showed us.
Oh, you screwed up?
Yes, exactly. That my bond was expired and then I couldn't apply for a permit. So, and that's why Lou and I got it. Yeah, that's right. So I'm up.
I think one of the benefits is that the county is using it because Trail Creek, for instance, just decided to go a different direction. They went the direction that the county is trying to leave. The county has had some delays because of software upgrades, but I know personally in trying to help other municipalities that the county will be very happy because there's going to be a lot of streamlining, and they're very helpful and responsive. But a difficulty in all of these is finding anybody local because there aren't communities using these. So partnering, using Beacon and having the county, I think things are going to be a lot more accurate and be able, the county to download and update their information electronically. So.
By far and away, the slickest salesman and probably well, it's just called the slickest salesman, was the first one that we saw. And we realized and discussed after we had the presentation, fantastic salesman, but they're in the state of Washington. And once that sale is made, you know, I think, so what we're looking at really is, I think, in line with what your questions are, Pete, and I'm assuming everybody else's.
So it was like, what do I have to do today to put you in this?
Well, you look like ZZ Top, so I like them. Yeah, Billy Gibbons, right, he was Billy Gibbons, so, yeah, and we don't want to have problems, and I guess to answer your other question is, honors duties within the building department, and I sent a note off to everybody, I think you got it yesterday. Our goal would be to have honor be the front person on the data entry and assimilating the information from the old system. All these people take our spreadsheets and upload all the information. So it would also have all of our previous permits, I think 4 years is what they said. So we would have access to 4 years of information on properties. And then also, let's say you wanted to find out how many jobs Bob's done in the last 5 years or whatever. When you punch his address up, it lists everything that he's had permits for. So they're pretty comprehensive, some more than others, but I agree with you. Sometimes it's always not about, it's always not about.
And have they provided any kind of documentation as to what the ongoing documentation would be?
Meaning what, like,
How to run it, how to bring it back up, how to enter a piece of data down to the minute level, because you may not want to ultimately enter all this, and somebody else is going to have to enter it, and somebody else may have to bring a system back up which crashed. So all those procedures need to be thoroughly and specifically identified. We've had problems with that in the past with Civic. So that the documentation to completely run the system is critical. I mean, it can't be, oh yeah, just give us a call. We're going to have stuff in hand, preferably paper copies.
Okay.
In addition to the electronic version.
okay,
So review that specific documentation
okay,
that's there.
got it.
Anything else? Okay, so we're gonna make, these guys are gonna talk to a couple of the people and obviously visit LaPorte because they're already involved with one of the purveyors. Next up is the solar ordinance. I think everybody got Ken's information. Thank you very much, Ken, for the research, as well as, I'm trying to turn this phone off. I don't know how to do it. I need my 8-year-old granddaughter in here to figure it out. Thank you, Ken, and I don't know, I'm sure you probably you just got the stuff off. I'm sure you haven't made contact with the fire department, but
Oh, not yet. I
yeah,
just responded yesterday, I believe, so.
right.
I could reach out to the chief and start with them, or I could copy all the members of the fire department.
My suggestion, as I mentioned in the email, is probably to talk to him first, and I think what they'll probably do, just me being on the fire department, is they'll probably pick 2 people to work with you.
Yeah,
And once you guys come up with basically the information I think that you sent, and when you go over with them, I think the biggest thing from the fire department standpoint is the margins. And I know there's NFPA regulations on the margins. They're terrible. The margins, I think, are 18 inches and 24, maybe 36 on the ridge. And an 18-inch margin on a 2-foot overhang means you're standing over air.
Yeah.
And you also can't ventilate, right? So I don't know if we have the option of being able to do anything with that, but I think that's kind of some of the things.
Yeah.
From the fire.
I was only able to pick out in the electrical code, in the C70, that electrically, the things that we're able to point out that were pertinent to safety. The marking, the disconnect, first of all, for the firemen or whoever to be able to access, and then the signage required for that. And then there was another point in there, the voltage limitation for 1 and 2 resident dwellings is 600 instead of 1,000 volts. So those are all things that we have to look at when a permit is made, that they're in compliance with that. I think it's sufficient to say, in general, that a solar system should comply with the most current NEC.
Yes.
And in particular, like I said in the email, the section 690, the solar aspect of it. What there isn't a lot of, which I'm researching, is the mechanical, the structural aspect of it. This permit that we're going to review, or that came through that I was able to review, that permit application addressed it quite well in the design. Your solar panel, you have a snow loading, for the area here, which snow loading on a regular roof is a distributed weight thing, where all the rafters share the load there. When you put a solar area on the top, now you transfer that distributed loading to the solar panels. However, the point of contacts with the solar panel feet transfer that into a point loading. And then what happens is a certain amount of rafters get point loaded, and you really have to pay attention to that to see that.
Absolutely.
So I'm not a mechanical engineer or civil engineer, but there is stuff that addresses that I've come across, but I'm still sifting through that.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly on using the NFPA regulations as well.
Yeah.
Because as I mentioned, I think on other items here in the building commission, the advancement in means, materials, and methods for construction has outpaced the methods of firefighting, the technology advancements in firefighting. And solar is a prime example of it. We've had some trainings at the fire department. One in particular had a video from, I think it was New York, where they just hampered the firefighting efforts of this building to the point where, I don't want to say it was shameful, but you were basically there, you couldn't fight the fire with normal methods. So yeah, that's great. And look forward to getting your information back. And as I mentioned in the email, the process then is when you get with the fire department, you guys work something out. Chris can work with you on the draft or the actual verbiage of the ordinance. And then, Chris, I don't know if you want to hit on this. My understanding is that it would be brought to us. We would look at it. And then at a public meeting like this, we would make the recommendation to go forward. Then it goes to the APC, correct?
Yes, and the APC and the town council are ultimately the decision makers on the due diligence and introduce and recommend those changes.
Great. Thanks, Ken.
One more point, Larry. The information I provided with the NFPA site, there is several, almost 200 different categories. Fire departments and their police department, all sorts of things that the fire department and people themselves could access that freely and review this stuff and see what they could pick and choose out of there that is prevalent to them. So everybody here, there's tremendous information available for free. If you want to work with the data, then you got to pay a fee, but I managed to get a 14-day free trial. So to pull some of the stuff out, put it in our email, so.
Thanks for your work.
Yep, okay.
Next up is the solar panel installation at 2610 Oriole. And the permit was held after the last meeting because the permit fee hadn't been paid and the contractor was not registered. The permit fee has been paid and the contractor is registered. Bob had mentioned, I don't know if it was during a meeting or after, whatever, but this application meets the requirements of our current ordinance. So I don't think that we can say, and I guess this is a question for Chris, we can't say, hey, you have to wait till we redo our ordinance. Everything on this application fits our ordinance. So I would certainly think that we should approve it.
The only thing I would say is, is it safe? I mean, the original issue with 2900 was nobody could properly access the roof to cut the hole in the roof or whatever. I mean, we still have to abide by safety rules, and the fire department has to do it.
Yes.
So Your fire department's happy with it, I'm happy.
The fire department, yeah, I guess to say that they're happy, and I suppose I don't know if I'm gonna get myself in trouble here. The fire department's not really happy because we need a stricter ordinance, and that's what Ken's doing. From the fire department standpoint, I don't believe that, we don't think that the margins that are currently code respect the type of construction that not only is going throughout the whole country, but here. And as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, with the margin, meaning the area that between where a solar panel can end and the end of the roof is the margin, what they're calling open margins. And from the top of the solar panels to the ridge, those margins by code are X number of inches. And if you have an overhang on a roof that's 2 feet and the margin is only 2 feet, that means that you're no longer able to cut a ventilation hole in an E. You would be able to on the ridge. So that's what Ken and the fire department hopefully are going to come up with.
My point is just that even though an ordinance may not specifically outline something or commit something, the overriding consideration for everything that the town does is promote the general welfare, the health, safety, and all that kind of stuff. So if some system is deemed unsafe, that supersedes any ordinance that we have. I'm not saying this does or doesn't. I'm just saying, just because the ordinances say it, we still have that overriding consideration for everything.
I'm not qualified personally to say that whether or not the installation is safe. I'm qualified to do a lot of things in construction, but I am not qualified to make a determination that this solar installation is completely safe. As I mentioned previously, Ken has looked at it from the electrical standpoint and feels that it meets the requirements. From a structural standpoint, I am in the same mind as Ken. Evenly distributed loads across the roof are wind loads, snow loads, dead loads, and then live loads. But when you talk about taking a solar panel, just like this, so here's the roof, and this white sheet is the solar panel, and it's connected in 14 spots along here. Sure. That load for not only the panels themselves, but the snow that's on top of it is now point loaded in those 14 spots. And
That was addressed in the engineer's design.
Is it?
He focused those points over Joyce, I'm sorry, not Joyce Factors. And he called for reinforcement in a couple of them to double up. So really, I'm confident both from structural and electrical perspective that this thing is okay. And based on that, I would move to approve this application.
We'll second.
So we have a motion from Ken to approve, and a second by Joy. Any other discussion?
I can say that Pat Cole, 2900 Lothair is going to be coming back in front of our commissioner to put solar panels on the house.
Okay.
That's better on the corner.
One question to you, you referenced margins. You said that's in print, what documents are you referring to where you can extract that or we can see that?
I'm just looking at what was submitted to us on this particular permit. And when I look at that, what they sent us was, I don't know the code for solar, so I didn't know, I don't know where I can go and say, what is this? He didn't put a dimension on there. He just said margins will be according to X, Y, Z. I didn't know X, Y, Z. That's why I'm not qualified to make that decision or advise that decision.
And my principal concern structurally was the loading of the roof and transfers and weight that. And he addressed that. I didn't give a lot of thought to the margins, but you got a valid point.
Right.
I want to walk on the solar panels. Well, if they're right.
Right, absolutely. So we have a motion on the floor for approval of this permit. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries. Next up is new business. First item on new business is 2028 Silvertip. This is a job that my company put the permit in for, so I'm going to ask somebody, Bob, if you want to take over, or Pete, or Joy, or anybody. Somebody would have to probably take this over, would be the correct thing to do.
Yeah, so this was a permit, I think everybody's seen it. And basically, it's basically just renovation inside, right? There's no change in anything outside?
There are additions to the residents. Those are on the drawings. You want me to bring the drawings up on the screen?
Yeah, if you could, I'll bring them up.
I sure can. I think this is going to be the easiest drawing to shoot. Let me get back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, look at this print here, all the setbacks are complied with, and the coverage totals 33%.
See the existing structure and proposed structure?
Yeah, that's the one I'm trying to bring up here.
You can bring it up, like,
Yeah, I'm having a problem.
yes, what's with that odd shape? What's the plan there?
Hold on, and I'll bring it up. I'm having problems here. I'm sure it's. Okay. So, pardon me. When you see this, where my mouse is, that white space is the existing house.
Right.
The dashed line are the building setbacks. This setback is the rear setback, that's 20 feet. This dashed line is the front setback. This is the side setback line here, 10 feet. This is the side setback here, which is 10 feet. This setback on the west side will ultimately be 11 feet. The setback will be 13 feet. This setback is at 20 feet. And these hashed areas on the front are at the 30-foot mark. The existing home is in white. The additions are hatched. Are these sections here? I don't know if I can see this thing to show you. But we bring this up. I don't know. Does that make sense to everybody?
And what is in those hatched spaces?
I can bring the drawings up. Let me bring this up first. Okay. It's not doing too well here.
The additional stuff outside is they're all decking stairs.
Yes, except for, here we go, let's try this one. There we go. So the lot size is 8712. The proposed house is 2404. The grass pavers in the driveway are 500. That area includes some areas of turf, but I just included the entire 500 because ordinance are such that there's no allowance for permeable areas. And I think we all agree on that. So there's 500. There's also 304 feet, which I could bring back the other drawing of, it's just going to be grass area where it's possible to park another car. That gives you total coverage of 2904, which is 33%. The building height on the Silvertip or east or south elevation is 20 foot. On the north elevation or the eastman side, there's an easement that runs behind the houses on Lake Shore Drive, and in front of the houses on Silvertip. The setback from the easement is, the building height is 32 feet. And then these are the setbacks, 30 in the front, 20 in the rear, 13 on the side, and 11 on the other side. And Joyce, I'm sorry, what was your question? Oh, I thought you did, or Lou, did you?
What windows from the,
Windows. Let's see. If we get it. These sections, these are actually building sections, the triangles in front. One is the entry, and then the staircase. I can bring up one of the other drawings too to help you see, have an idea of what's in there. See the bump outs on this drawing? Those are actually building sections, they're not decks. The one in the back is a deck. This is the lake side or the Lakeshore Drive where the easement is. This is the Silvertip side.
So because it's a Silvertip address, but abutting Lake Shore Drive, you still have to have just 6,000 square feet because it's on Lake Shore Drive?
No, I don't think it's on Lakeshore Drive. It's a Silvertip address. The lot should be 12,000 square feet. It's only 8,700. When we changed the ordinance, let me see if I can get the other one up. So you can see.
Or do you have a front elevation?
Let's look at this. So here's the existing structure. This is the lot. You can see where Silvertip is here. And then this is the easement or courtway. It's the same courtway that runs behind, goes from stop 20. Or is it 20? No, it goes from stop 20 through to Hazeltine, or to Hazeltine, and then goes from Hazeltine to Chastleton. This easement all the way through there with this courtway. It's not developed, but it's town property. So there's really no, I don't think you could say it was on Lake Shore Drive. The address is Silvertip Lane. Here's the existing structures. This is the same box with the setbacks on it. Here's the proposed structure in the same box with the setbacks on it. Here's the dimensions here to the box. And they're actually they're under the requirement for both square foot, 33%, since we changed the ordinance, as well as the setbacks. Was there another question?
Yeah.
I would move to approve.
Is there a second story?
Yes. Want me to bring, I can bring those in.
Second.
And our maximum height is 33 feet, right?
Yes, and they're 32, that's correct.
And our change in ordinance was non-conforming property. You can now increase the coverage area, provided you stay below the 35%. Correct?
That's correct. I mean, well, Chris should really speak to that, not me.
I think overall, the lot sizes, as long as they're buildable, first, I just want to point out, I have a first and a second, as it was.
Yep.
But secondly, that former lot size, as long as it's a buildable lot, it really isn't a conversation anymore for the most part. You know, it's really the non-conformances of being in setbacks, height, lot coverage, those kinds of things. So as long as it's otherwise in compliance, generally, as these come before you, because it's kind of a new way of thinking, you know, you're correct, Dr. LeMay, but yeah, I think that'll become second nature as we move forward.
Pete, this is the elevation. I think you asked, could you ask a question about the elevation? This, where my arrow is here, is the Silvertip side. That elevation is 20 feet. On the easement side, the elevation, because the ground changes, will vary from 30 foot 6 inches to a high of 32 feet. The reason for the variance, as I said, is not that the building is going to change, it's going to be level. As long as I'm not building.
So is the back 2 stories, 3 stories?
The back is actually 3 stories. The front above grade is only 1 to 2 stories, I'm sorry.
I can't remember what the story height on the show was.
33 feet.
I mean, it's a number of stories.
Oh, 3. I should be. That Chris.
Any other discussion? Call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Okay. Next up, 3023 Mayfield Way. Again, this is my own home, so I would ask Bob to, we're replacing bathroom fixtures and a window in the master bath and one in the lower level.
And this was where I was confused, okay. So this is all just changes inside, right?
Yes.
Anybody have any concerns about this?
I will move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Next up is 2006 Somerset. Lou, we had some questions after we went through the review on this. A couple of things that came up were stairs were in the front setback, which by ordinance is not allowed. Stairs can extend into the setbacks by 48 inches, but only on the sides. So that was an issue. We needed coverage calculations. The chimney clearance, we were concerned that the chimneys, there was no designation on clearance. A chimney, the opening on a chimney has to be 2 feet higher than 10 feet away. So basically what that means is you put a string on the chimney opening and you pull the string around and make sure that at 10 foot that you don't touch any other part of the roof. So we wanted to clarify that. Last thing is, they're going to demolish the existing and build a new home. We did not have a septic approval. So those were the 4 questions we had. Lou, I don't know, did you get anywhere with the owners?
Yeah, I spoke to him this morning, and these questions have been, he's been told that he needs to answer these questions for us. And stairs, the chimney, septic approval, and there's no coverage calculation. So we're waiting for them to get back to us.
Okay, so we'll hold that one over. 3100 Lakeshore Drive, which is the real estate office. All the work is interior. The only thing that we wanted to see was the way it was written, there was plumbing going to be done in the kitchen, and we wanted to make sure that they had a licensed plumber signed up to do that work, as well as apply for an electrical permit. And I have not had any conversations. I don't know.
I have.
You have?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they know that, we need a licensed plumber, and so we need an electrical permit.
So what's this going to be used for?
It's the real estate office. You want me to bring the drawings with me?
No, it's going to continue to be the same office.
My understanding is that they were just changing, they don't have a kitchen in there, they're putting a kitchen in.
I suppose that's a good question, but I didn't ask it.
Right, Pete, we can ask the question. I just assumed it was gonna be a real estate office.
Right, because, yeah, just find that out.
Right.
So
The
the
answer to that would be subject, I'm no contractor, to apply for the permit to be the payment question. But is that subject that?
you know,
You need to come up to the mic.
You'll have to step up and turn that on, yeah, and then just tell us who you are and what you're doing. That didn't sound right, you know what I mean?
You need to hold it in a little bit.
There you go.
There we go. Hi, my name is Matt Cochran. I'm the contractor for the 3100 Lakeshore Drive project. And my question is, I know that I've got electrical applications or a permit and a plumber that needs to be registered, that needs to be associated to the project. But as far as any of those things you just referenced, the use of the project, I'm just hired to put a kitchen in.
Right.
Is the permit gonna be subject to the answer of that question? Is that something you guys are gonna seek out? Or?
The permit, actually, the permit, if these two questions are asked, the permit doesn't even have to come and be voted on by the commission because it's all interior work. The reason it came here was because of those two questions. So the actual use of the property, we'll have to do some research. So I'm going to ask for everybody's opinion, but I will answer Pete's question. We'll call the owner and find out. But from your standpoint, as long as you abide by those two items, there's really no reason, like we talked about on other things. If you are in compliance with our rules, laws, ordinances, whatever you want to call them, there's no reason why we couldn't approve the permit. So that's where we're at now.
So its approval is only subject to those applications being made, and then I won't have to come back in a month.
No, you would deal with either Lou or I, or right.
Just so I can think
You
about
probably
it.
want to deal with him, not me.
Well, I have, we've talked extensively once.
Okay,
All right, very good.
great, thanks.
And so Pete reminded me that is a business in a residential district, and it's been allowed to continue to function as a business in a residential district. However, if it goes back to a residential use, then it can't be used as a business again.
Well, I just want to clarify, is the zoning will dictate. So right now, if what you're saying is there are non-conforming uses the way that it's zoned.
Yep.
Because it's zoned residential, for instance, it isn't zoned business, but it is grandfathered and it has been continued predecessor, successor in interest now with the owner. It can continue that way. If it ceases, then that grandfathering goes away. So just want to clarify that.
Okay, so any other questions or discussion on 3100? Entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Bob Mayor, second by Pete. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Next up is what's the address? I wrote 2700 Nolan, that's not Floral. Yeah, 700, thanks, Joey. 2700 Floral Trail. That's for some waterproofing, and they're putting an egress in the lower level.
Yeah, and speaking to the owner, there's no plans for a bedroom. They're not even finished in the basement. They're waterproofing it and so either somebody clued them in on how you can build a window well then without, better. Or they're not gonna put it there. So, what they're asking for doesn't like, is a permit to put the window well in, an egress window well, and do the installation from the outside and the inside, not finishing the basement.
Egress means they,
That you can get out of it. It meets the code, the IRC, International and Indiana Code, to meet egress, which means somebody can get out of a building. The windows or that opening has to be of X size. So I'm also on this because it's below grade. They're putting in not only the size of the opening to get out of, they're putting in an outside barrier for the ground so that if somebody is in there, in other words, you're subterranean.
Yeah.
You put a window in there, dirt, but what they're gonna do is they're gonna dig out and put a barrier in so that somebody can open that window, get out, and come up to grade. The only thing I didn't check, Lou, which comes to mind, is to make sure that they are within setback requirements, because that is a structure, the egress unit, and it would have to meet setback requirements.
Having been on the property, I can tell you that it's got to be 40, 50 feet at least to that side of the building.
If they meet that setback, then, so the question, Bob, was normally when somebody puts in an egress window on a lower level, it's because they want to put a bedroom in there. They're not, the permit application we have before us is not for a bedroom downstairs. But that question automatically came up in our mind as we were reviewing these. Are you putting an egress in because you're adding a bedroom? And then if you're adding a bedroom, the next question that would be asked would be, do you meet the septic requirements for an additional bedroom?
how tall is this barrier they have to climb over to get out?
I don't know what the grade is. It could be anywhere from 8 feet. It could be anywhere from 8 feet to 2 feet.
So this basement is not totally underground.
I have not seen it.
It must not be, right?
It's still in the front, yeah.
So that would say that it's an 8 foot.
But no stairs to get
Oh,
out.
no, there's stairs. You have to have 2 egress points. That's why they put these window wells in, you go up the stairs to the first floor, or you go out the window.
And there's actually steps, like a ship's ladder type steps,
Going up the barrier.
in the outside area.
Now, why do we need to?
Well, they want to. They're not required to have to if that's a basement.
They put in a closet
They're not telling us they're putting anything in.
I'm just telling you, we're gonna see,
Pete, that's why we asked the question. We don't want, as you mentioned earlier, we don't want to have somebody be unsafe, number one. And number two, we don't want to have an issue down the road. If they were to do this and then sell the house and that they had a problem down the road, we want to make sure that we're asking the question now. What you want.
I can say it cannot be a closet, and it's not there.
So I guess we'd entertain a motion to approve this
I'll make
or deny it, whatever you guys want.
motion to approve.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. I have nothing else. Does anybody else on the building commission have any other items?
I have a question about the citations.
Oh, the sheet that Renee gave us?
Yes. The one from 4/8/2022 for 2600 Bill Lane, didn't last month we say their permit was approved as long as they paid their fines? Because I saw them working out there this week.
They were
And,
working there this week?
yeah,
Oh, on the drive.
I don't know what they were working on, but
Didn't we approve the driveway?
provided they paid their fine.
Yes.
Yeah,
the purpose. I'm sorry, go ahead, Lou.
And their line is still on here, unpaid.
Yeah, I think we didn't wake up to the outstanding fines until after we approved the driveway work. Because the driveway work was actually to correct the coverage that she overstepped the bounds on.
So they're not working on. Okay, and my second one is, I think, the one from 8/4/2022, 1610 Nichols, Carolyn Eichelman, I think that's a mistake and should be taken off because,
Yes, it is. We met, that's the one that you and I, we met.
yeah, because that was before we started giving fines to the homeowner and the contractor.
Right. So there should be no fine to the homeowner.
What we should do, honor, maybe you could
Right,
do
so that
this
should
for
come
us.
off.
If you would check with, if you would check with Deanna, I'm pretty sure that was paid too, because I think she paid it the day that the roof.
Well, she shouldn't have had to pay one, but her contractor paid his, but she should come off here because that was
Okay.
before we said the homeowner should get fined.
That's a good
So
point.
that should be voided or?
Well, I'm pretty sure, I'm not gonna say I'm positive, Renee,
Got
because,
paid and everything.
yeah, I do know that somebody came in and paid $100 for the fine. And whether it was her or the contractor, I don't know. And I think what Joy is saying is there was a duplicate, it's a duplicate, and it should be marked off.
Correct.
And on the question on 2600, 2602, after our meeting that day, I called the homeowner, and she was in Mexico. She said she was gonna, and I dropped the ball on that. I explained to her about the fines, and I said, when you get back, call me and we'll make sure. So I will call her again today. I'm sure she's back. That's been a month. And I'll call her and tell her that she still owes $200 and have her come in to pay it. Thanks, Joy. Any other business to come before us? Any public comments? There's no public.
There might be somebody, anybody,
Oh, I'm sorry. Anybody on Zoom? Renee, is there anybody even on there?
No.
Did anybody comment here?
There was somebody on earlier. I
There
don't
was
know.
earlier, we ended that.
Being none, I guess we move for adjournment. Pete,
John's favorite part.
Yeah, I'm sorry, there. We do have two on.
is anybody raising their hand? Can you tell?
Yeah, no, put in the beer shelf.
Okay. We're all set. Thanks. Next meeting is February 10th. Thank you.